So today is chapter 4, lesson 3, add and subtract like fractions. I feel like this is going to be pretty simple for you because we aren't really going to have to do any changing of denominators today. Yay. Okay, so we're going to ease into fractions a little bit, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to start simple. But first, let's go over the bell ringer. We'll order these from least to greatest. That's what we did, gosh, a few days ago already. Now, to order these from least to the greatest, what would you do to make it simple for yourself? What would you do, Jacob? I would make them into decimals, yeah, because there's already 2 in there that are decimals, right? And that percent, how do you change that to a decimal again? Even though it's got a decimal in it, I have to get rid of that percent sign. What do I need to do to that, Kaylee? Yep. Very good. So now it looks like this, right? Okay. And you probably know this one off the top of your head, what that is in a decimal, right? What's that in a decimal? 0.5. So now we can start putting them in order from least to greatest. So what is the smallest one up here? What's that smallest one? Cadence? Yeah, 0.49 is the smallest. Then what's the smallest up here? Thanks, Ryan. You're right. Very good. Oh, actually, what should I write, though? I should write what the original one was. Okay. And then what's the next one? Yep, Jasmine? What if I go like this? Now it's the smallest. 0.5. What's that? Oh, no, that's all right. So then we have 1/2, and then we have 0.55. Any questions on that? Any questions on that? Okay, good, very good. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of these things, and we kind of touched on them a little bit the other day, but let's talk about them. What's fraction? What's fraction? If I ask you what a fraction is, what would you tell me? Yeah, Henry. Small portion of a whole number, right? It's a small portion, and usually there's a top number and a bottom number. The top number is always the numerator, and the bottom's the denominator, just so you remember those two things. Very good. Okay, so adding fractions with like denominators. You're going to feel like today you're probably in about, I don't know, 4th grade. What am I going to do to add these fractions? What am I going to add these fractions, Zane? Yeah, why am I not going to add that denominator? Yeah. It's the same thing, and if I think about it, if I draw a picture of these two things, okay, pretend they're even. And this is a 4th, and this is 2/4. What doesn't change? That denominator, those pieces don't change. You're always going to have 4 pieces or whatever that denominator is. So all I'm going to do is add the top number. So 2 plus 1 is 3 and 4, and 3/4 is going to be my answer. So you never add those bottom numbers because your whole never ever changes. It doesn't change. It's not all of a sudden 8 pieces. It's still 4 pieces. You're only adding those top numerators because that's the only thing that's moving. Okay. Same thing with subtraction. Am I going to change the whole? Can I change the 12? Because I'm not going to make it, all of a sudden 0 pieces, right, of my pie. So 10 minus 6, that's going to stay 12. 10 minus 6 is 4. Now you need to reduce every time. You have to reduce. That's just how it is. If you say something, you always reduce, unless I tell you differently. What's 4/12 reduced? 1/3. Nice job. So 1/3, oops, would be my answer. Pretty simple, right? I feel like, but that's all right. That's all right. All right, so let's add this one. Let's add this one. What you got? What you got in your head? Jasmine? 8/5. What is this called? What's this called? Improper fraction, and those are 2 vocabulary words you need to know today, is a mixed number and an improper fraction. You might have both of these things today, okay? So you're probably going to end up with an improper fraction sometime. And then you're going to have to change it to a mixed number, and let's talk about that after you're done with taking your notes. I guess my question is to you, what did you do last year? If you got an answer that was an improper fraction, did you leave it like that, Jasmine? Did you automatically always change it to mixed number? Okay, because that's what I want you to do too this year. I automatically want you to change that to that mixed number. Now, what were some ways that you learned how to change to mixed number last year? Do you remember, Jasmine? Okay, and that was like your leftover part. Okay. Did anybody else learn a different way, Cadence? You divide it, and that's what I'm going to show you today too. Because sometimes you get mixed numbers that are huge. You could have like 112 over 7, and you're like, well, if you take 112 minus 7, that's not going to give you the right answer. So I'm going to teach you, or I'm just going to show you how to divide to figure out what your mixed number is. Did you learn this last year? Anybody else but Cadence and Jacob? Yeah, you learned this way? Okay. So if you aren't sure, let me show you. Remember how we talked about how this is a division problem? It's a division problem, right? And the top always goes in the house. So 8 divided by 5. 5 goes into 8 how many times? Once. Okay, I'm going to minus this. And then I have a remainder. Do you remember remainders when you were like, I don't know, yay, high? Remember remainders? They were so fun because you didn't have to bring them out to like the decimal place and have it go on forever. You can use the remainder here too. Okay, so this is that part that you have left over, like you said, that you subtracted. And then you're going to bring this part down and make the rest of your fraction. Okay? It's super simple. To me, this is how I would do it because if I have weird mixed or weird fractions, this is the way that I'm going to get a right mixed number. But some of them you can do in your head. You probably could do that in your head. That's fine. But there's some that you aren't probably going to be able to. So, okay. Do you guys remember negative rules from last time? What's my negative rules? If I'm adding and subtracting negatives, what were some things that you remember? What did we do when we added subtract negatives? Do you remember? This is why it's important to have it in your notebook. Remember adding and subtracting negatives. What were some things we talked about? Not multiplying and dividing, just adding and subtracting. Do you remember? What were some ways I taught you how to do that? Give me one, Zane. Cats and dogs. Yep. Number line and tiles was the last one, remember? But most of you, I think, used cats and dogs. Okay? Here's the deal. You're going to have to remember those things because now we're going to have negative fractions. Oh, sounds terrible, doesn't it? Negative fractions. But it happens. So you have to make sure you remember your rules. So here's an example. And if I were you, I would maybe write it down so you have kind of an example of a negative in your homework. And we'll do a few other negative ones so you have a few examples in your homework. So I have negative 3/5 plus negative 1/5. Negative 3/5 plus negative 1/5. Come on, let's move down. There we go. So this is what happens. When you have a negative fraction, that negative can float. It can float to the top number and it can float to the bottom number. Where do you think we want it? We want it in the top number. Because do we do anything really with that bottom number? Does that always stay the same? Yeah, so we are not going to let it go to the bottom number. So we're going to make it float up to that 3. So we're going to make it look like this. Does that make sense so far? Okay. And so now that, because we said that 5 always stays, I'm just going to keep that 5. Now, I'm going to take negative 3 plus negative 1. This is where you have to remember your rules. So if I have two negatives, I have all cats. What's that answer going to be when I add those two numbers together? Negative 4. So then, my fraction looks like this. Negative 4 over 5. And that's my answer. Okay, so it's really, really important to remember those rules. And that's why we learned that chapter before this one. Because we had to know about those negatives. We had to know about those negatives. We're going to do a few more practice of these. Okay? Because I feel pretty good with you just doing the regular ones. But the negative ones can sometimes get you in trouble. So, all right, so let's work on this one. So negative 3/7 plus 1/7. So I'm going to rewrite it for myself because sometimes that's what I like. 7's going to stay the same. But then I have negative 3 plus 1. So I have 3 cats, 1 dog. 1 dog's going to run out. 1 cat. What am I have left? Negative 2. Yep. So negative 2/7 would be my answer. Okay. Just think about your cats and dogs. That's why we take notes. So if you need your notes, go back and look at them. Go back. Okay, what do you remember when we subtract a negative? What's the rule there? Yeah, KCC, remember? And what do you notice here? We got a subtraction sign, and we got a negative sign, and oh my goodness. Good thing we talked about this a few weeks ago. So if you want to have this as an example, I probably put this in your notebook too. So I'm going to rewrite it for myself, so I can put that up there. I know that's going to be 9. But what does this say? What does this say? What does that say? Subtract says negative 5 minus 2. So tell me what I'm going to do for keep, change, change again, because I have to use it here, right? Okay, so what am I going to do with this one? I'm going to keep this one. What am I going to do? Change. If I change this one, I got to change this one. So then that's terrible, but it's negative 5 plus negative 2. Should be negative 7. Negative 7. So be so careful. If you need to rewrite them out, rewrite it out. If you can do it like this, that's fine. Do it like that. I don't care. If you need to rewrite it out for yourself, please do that. I don't want you to get something wrong because you didn't want to just take the 2 seconds to write it out. Take that little extra time. That's okay. Okay. So that's all I have for you in my lesson. Do you want to do a little practice? Or do you want me to show you a few more? Or do you want me to do some mixed number ones maybe? A few mixed number ones? You got to tell me what you guys want.